So I recently learned something quite interesting about video games. Many young people have developed incredible hand, eye, and brain coordination in playing these games. The Air Force believes these kids will be our outstanding pilots should they fly our jets. And that's from Ronald Reagan, August 8, 1983. Now, from that quote, I mean, it's pretty obvious that he doesn't think that video games are, what he thinks that video games are not bad. And I grew up with video games, and it's been part of my life ever since. But video games have this stigma that still surrounds it today. There are many misconceptions about video games, but the scope of my presentation will cover three most widely known. I will prove to you after careful research that video games does not lead to violence, it does not lead to social isolation, and it does not lead to decreased intelligence. So, the first idea is that video games lead to violence. When the Columbine shootings exploded across the nation, the national consciousness, like a hollow point bullet, like rock and rap music went from harmless diversions to harbingers of ruins. Then the press highlighted that these shooters were fixated in this new game called Doom. Suddenly, like the parents and lobbyists, they had this fresh new battleground, using this terrifying new medium as a rallying cry to fight misconduct and violence. And overnight, video games as a whole went from harmless entertainment to the missing link between suburban youths and horrific violence. So why is this false? Now, according to the book Popular Culture, those who found fault with video games rationalized that despite the mental imbalances, these kids wouldn't have done what they've done if they didn't play Doom. Now, claims like this are based on inconclusive research, and it's riddled with conceptual problems, and also the methods they use are not clear, and they're basically not sound methods. Like, for example, from the book Connecting Social Problems in Popular Culture, in these studies, media images are removed from any narrative context. Subjects are asked to engage with content they would not normally consume, and the lab context is, well, it's radically different from the real world environment. Now, most studies found correlation, but not a causal relationship. And even until today, there's no research that's ever found that video games are a primary factor that could turn an otherwise normal person into a killer. So now that I've gone over the first misconception of video games, let's take a look at the next fallacy, that video games is socially isolating. So I think this stigma kind of comes from the gamer stereotype. Right? Like, you think that gamers are socially inept, they're loners, they live in their mom's basement and they have no friends. This is false. Like, much video game play is actually very social. And according to PBS.org, almost 60% of frequent gamers play with their friends, 33% play with siblings, and 25% play with their spouses or parents. Even games designed for single players are often played socially. Sometimes you have your friends come over, and they'll help you out, like if you're trying to figure out like a puzzle while you're controlling your character on screen. And also, a growing number of games are designed for multiple players. It's either cooperative play with someone in the same space as you, or an online interaction. And the good thing about the online interaction is the social interaction in online games is pretty dynamic. I used to play like an online game called World of Warcraft, and I met people from all over the world, and I actually, I'm still friends with one of them that lives in Europe. And I learned like a lot of things, like slang, other language phrases from my friend that I met in an online game. So now that I've talked about now that I've gone over how video games are not socially isolating, let's take a look at the notion that video games are bad for your brain. So growing up, my parents have always told me that video games will rot my brain. And like I went to a Catholic school, even my teachers told me that you're not going to get anything good out of them. And even now, critics and researchers insist that games make people less intelligent, since they assume that people will neglect their studies or responsibilities. This is false. Yeah, it's common sense that people should not neglect their responsibilities to play games, but games themselves tend to offer a kind of mental workout, especially improving spatial skills and eye-hand coordination. And from the Archives of Surgery, a recent study assessed video gaming enhancement of visual attention and its spatial distribution. A positive correlation was found between video gaming and visual attention processing. Games that require interaction with virtual reality situations actually lead to acquisition of complex real-life skills such as driving, flying a plane, or even playing golf. Now, what I found most interesting was actually from the article I read, the impact of video games on training surgeons in the 21st century. They wanted to see if there's a potential link between video game play and laparoscopic surgical skill in suturing. And what they found was past video game play in excess of 3 hours a week correlated with 37% fewer errors and 27% faster completion than their non-playing counterparts. Now, how about those hardcore video game players? Well, the really good video game players actually made 47% fewer errors, performed 39% faster, and scored 41% better overall. So in conclusion, with sound evidence about video games not leading to violence, social isolation, and decreased intelligence, I hope that I persuaded you to the fact that video games are indeed not bad for us, and that we can actually benefit from playing them. And I'd like to end with a quote from Shigeru Miyamoto. Video games are bad for you. That's what they said about rock and roll. Thank you.